I mean, look, whatever side of the Meghan Markle Harry debate you're on, I think people are pretty like one or the other. You love them, you hate them, whatever. But there's a kind of weird inconsistency to their Finding Freedom, the title of that book about them. If you really want freedom and independence, and I think paying back Frogmore Cottage, the cost there, and coming off their Harry's father's purse in the way that they apparently are doing, that's great. But if you really want freedom and independence, why hang on to these titles? Unless really you know in your heart that's what helps make you all the money.
Particularly in America, where you know, Piers, you've lived there, you've worked there, the royal family brand is still enormous and it's going to be very lucrative for them. But part of the reason I think no move was made against them to take their titles away, I don't think the royal family will ever get over quite how seared they were by the way they treated Princess Diana. She had HRH stripped from her, and she was then to be known as Diana, Princess of Wales, no longer the Prince of Wales. And then, of course, they offered the title back to her in the week she died. Ridiculous, panic reaction. So I think they've always remembered that now, the royal family, that perhaps was heavy-handed with Diana. But Diana was going to be the Queen Mum, for God's sake. That would have been her role.
Yeah, I think it's a very different thing. I mean, these two are quite a long way down the monarchy cab rank. They don't behave like they are, but they're like number 8, 9 now or something. So the chances of them ever exceeding the throne are no hope.
Nowhere near.
And I listen, if they want to go and live in their Santa Barbara mansion and make their woke movies, fine. But why keep the titles? I've spent more time in Sussex in the last week than they have in their lives.
The thing that makes me laugh is that you all have a go at them. The front of the Daily Mail this morning, it's more than half of the front page, even though it's saying the divorce from Britain is final. Even the front of your paper, Kevin Maguire, much to your chagrin, I know. Netflix, they repay the bill. They sell news. Even if you called them Meghan and Harry, they would sell thousands of newspapers.
Yeah, but that's because they do stuff all the time to grab media attention, whilst pretending they want to be private people. They don't want to be private people. They want to be multi-millionaire.
You don't want them to be private people.
They want to be multi-millionaire Hollywood woke moguls, and good luck to them. I just don't think they should do it as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, because when Meghan makes her political statement about Trump, she shouldn't be doing that as a member of the royal family. She can do it as an American citizen and a private person living in Hollywood.
The idea you wouldn't cover it, even if she did it and she wasn't a Duchess.
Of course we'd cover them, but they wouldn't be subjected to the same charge of hypocrisy or of the conflict of interest between the monarchy and its desire to be impartial politically and what they want to do over in LA.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have agreed to star in a fly-on-the-wall Netflix reality show with cameras following them for 3 months. That's according to reports in The Sun this morning. It's claimed they want to give people a glimpse into their lives and see all the charity work that
Susanna's described this as the tipping point in her deep, abiding love and support for Meghan Markle. I would say it's entirely in keeping with the hypocrisy of both of Meghan and Harry. Since they announced they were leaving the royal family, they want to have their royal cake and eat it, is my position. This all comes as a couple have apparently been accused by senior royal aides of breaking the terms of their Megxit deal with the Queen by commenting on the US election.
So have Harry and Meghan gone too far for you? And should they now be stripped of their royal titles? Joining us now, royal biographer and author and editor of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Seward, who says stripping Harry and Meghan of titles won't accomplish anything, and Norman Baker, who's a former MP and author of And What Do You Do, What the Royal Family Don't Want You to Know, who believes the pair should be stripped of their titles as they're using them for their own advantage. Good morning to you both. Norman Baker, I would say to you first, I mean, I think, probably like Ingrid, it doesn't matter if they're the Duke of Duchess, because, frankly, they have established themselves now over in America. Harry and Meghan, as names, are big enough to command the kind of attention and income that they want. So what does the royal titles have to do with anything?
It's a practical point, first of all, which is that if he keeps his HRH title, he's still eligible for public support to the taxpayer. That means, for example, we're paying probably up to £1 million a year for security personnel to wander around Frogmore Cottage and keep it safe. And we'll pay for his travel if he comes back to the UK. So there's a practical point. But more than that, HRH means he's representing Britain abroad. and he's not representing Britain abroad. He's clearly divorced himself from the royal family in practical terms, but not in titular terms. And let's be frank about this. Netflix wouldn't be offering a huge deal to Harry because of his interesting views. They're offering an interesting deal because of his connections with the royal family, which he therefore is.
Those connections don't cease once you take away their titles. I mean, he is still the Queen's grandson. He is still royal by birth. He still has all of that cachet, and so does she by marriage. The royal titles don't confer that on them.
Well, they do, actually, if I may say so, because if you take another example from Princess Anne's children, Peter Phillips is capable of running commercial businesses across the world and doesn't use HRH title. He hasn't got one, and there's not a problem particularly with him, except when he seeks to exploit the Buckingham Palace connection. Harry clearly is exploiting the Buckingham Palace connection, and the fact is he has to make up his mind: is he in the royal family or isn't he? If he wants to run away and do Netflix documentaries, that's fine as a private individual, but not when he keeps his HRH title.
Yeah,
his mother, of course.
I mean, let's get to what their titles actually are, because I found them for a Daily Mail column I did. Harry, for example, remains a Prince of the United Kingdom. His Royal Highness Prince Henry of Wales, the Duke of Sussex, the Earl of Dumbarton and Baron Kilkeel. Meghan remains a Princess of the United Kingdom. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, Countess of Dumbarton and Baroness Kilkeel. Now, I'm a man who grew up in Sussex, has a house in Sussex. I've spent more time in Sussex in the last week, about 3 hours, than they have in their collective lifetimes. They have nothing to do with the county that I revere. But more importantly, their only value for people like Netflix is because of the royal connection. It's because they are actually still HRH. They've said they won't use that publicly, but they still are HRH. They're still the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And when they made that incredibly insufferable, pompous statement for the Time 100, they were announced by Time as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Their website is sussexroyal.com. And it says in there, it's the official website of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Now, the problem with all this is that they want to have, as I said earlier, their royal cake and eat it. They want to trade off the royal titles and the royal name to make vast amounts of money, which is what they're now doing. But surely that is completely, and you've covered the royals for a long time, completely inconsistent with what we would expect from our royals.
Well, the title was a gift of the Queen on their wedding day to her, one of her favourite grandchildren, and to his future wife or his wife to be, and it's really something that it would be very churlish, I feel, for her to say they can't have this title anymore. Everybody knows them as Harry and Meghan, and yes, I totally agree with everything you say about their trading off their royal connections, but that's who they are. Harry is a prince of the blood, and you can't take that away from him.
See, I think that's the point, Ingrid. They don't become any less royal.
You can't take away his blood
as private individuals.
Well, short of a transfusion, you can't take his blood away, I agree. However, he has made it crystal clear now that not only does he want to sever all links with this country, but he now wants to poke his royal nose into politics in America and effectively advocate for a candidate to beat Donald Trump. That's what he did in that video they made. That, again, crosses every line of the royal family. They're not supposed to be anything but completely impartial when it comes to politics. And that's important, Ingrid, because the monarchy relies on its neutrality for its popularity.
Yes, I agree with you. Again, I keep agreeing with you. But the point, we are talking about stripping them of their titles.
Yeah.
And now the thing, remember that the Queen is, a very religious woman. She's very forgiving. She doesn't want to upset America. They tried so hard. The royal family have tried so hard over so many years to have America as an ally. And I just think it would be the wrong thing to do. And it is only within her power. She's the only person that can do it. But remember, they've got a sort of review, if you like, coming up in the spring of next year, because the Queen said, look, you go. Very generous. She said, you go, you do your own thing, and we will review the situation in a year. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen. And if anything, is going to happen about the removal of their titles, it won't happen until March next year.
You know what, yeah, OK. Let me bring in Norman again. Norman Baker, I mean, they collaborated. They say they didn't, but they obviously did. They collaborated with this book, Finding Freedom. It's all been about finding their freedom from the appalling, restrictive royal family and the dreadful racist media in the country, all this kind of nonsense. But this freedom, actually, what it really means is they want the freedom not to be private people, as they kept telling us. We now hear they're making a reality programme over 3 months of 24/7 cameras into their lives. That's not about finding privacy. They've signed a $150 million reported figure deal with Netflix only because they're royals. That's why they're having to do the Fly on the Wall documentary. Nobody gives a stuff about their eco-warrior, hypocritical nonsense that they spew all the time. They want to have the royal access. Netflix want to do the Duke and Duchess of Sussex at home in their mansion in Santa Barbara.
Of course, that's exactly what the situation is. They want the coverage. They don't want the hassle. They want the privacy when they decide they need privacy, and they want to have lots of exposure when they want lots of exposure. But I can just go back on Ingrid on one point. The Queen, of course, can take away this title because it was taken away from Harry's mother. When divorce came through with Prince Charles, Charles spitefully ensured that Diana was no longer HRH, so there is a precedence for this.
There is a precedent. I mean, Ingrid, we did a poll on Good Morning Britain, whether they should be stripped. We had a big response.
10,000 people voted.
Right, that's a lot for one of our votes, and 74% of the Good Morning Britain viewers think Prince Harry and Meghan should have their title stripped. Only 26% think they shouldn't. I saw similar polls with very similar results coming out at the end of last week. The British public are not having this. I think they've had the wool taken off their eyes about particularly Meghan Markle. And I suppose there's a wider issue here, Ingrid. I actually think many people feel quite sad about what's happening with Prince Harry. You know, they see him. You know, I was joking earlier, and we've got a little clip here. They remind me of an old comedy puppet duo. Do you remember Lord Charles with Ray Allen? Let's take a little look.
Well, I have to hold my mouth like that to do it. He can move his mouth, but I can't move mine.
I'm sorry, but when I see these hostage videos that Harry does, I'm reminded of Lord Charles, that Meghan's out there holding him like a puppet. And in fact, he's even one removed from Lord Charles. He's the dimwit at the end, just nodding along, saying whatever she tells him to say. It's embarrassing. And not just for him, but also for his grandmother.
And his grandfather. Now, I've just written a book about his grandfather, and Philip gave up everything, absolutely everything that he loved and wanted to do, like being in the Royal Navy, for the sake of the monarchy and to support his wife, who became queen. And his view is that, you know, if you've got a sense of duty, if you don't have a sense of duty, that there is absolutely no point in being part of the monarchy. But Harry is part of the monarchy by his birth. And I think that his grandfather's extremely disappointed with his lack of duty. I mean, surely Meghan could have supported him in his role as a prince.
I don't think she had any... honestly, I don't think she had any intention of doing anything other than what she's now done, which is come here, marry our favourite handsome prince, take him back to California, buy a massive mansion, do a huge TV deal, make herself one of the biggest stars in the world. And
potentially run for president.
And have Harry left sitting there like a dummy, you know, just spouting whatever she tells him to spout. And it's just a sad spectacle. Anyway, we've got to leave it there. Ingrid and Norman, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you both.
Let us know what you think about whether you think... Maybe I'm wrong about this, and maybe I'm wrong about Meghan all the time.
There is any point in stripping them of the titles. I think they've already got that reputation, that royal cachet. They are going to be royals. People are always going to now be interested in Harry and Meghan. I think what you really want is for them to just be quiet and go away.
No.
Even if they were stripped of the titles.
You are completely
misrepresenting. If they speak out, for instance, about politics, that's still going to be embarrassing for the Queen.
I would want them to
Isn't it? Even if they don't have the titles.
No, I want them to make a completely clean break. Go and get the freedom you say you want. That means you don't keep all the titles which give you all the value and make people interested in you. You have to live off being Meghan and Harry.
I think they could.
If your theory is right,
think they could.
if your theory is right, they can go and make as much money and spout off as much as they like, but they can't do it while they have royal titles.
I think even if the titles go, they would be an
damaging to the
embarrassment.
integrity and neutrality of the monarchy. And I value the monarchy, I'm afraid, and Her Majesty the Queen a lot higher than Meghan Markle in her Santa Barbara mansion, spewing off about politics and taking big TV deals.
Well, he remains
That ain't the
royal.
way this works, I'm afraid. And someone's got to stand up for it and support the monarchy and the Queen, because they're the ones getting damaged.
But don't you think that if Prince Harry loses his prince and his duke title and still speaks out about politics, don't you think, because of who he is, that's still going to be awkward
I think if he says
for the
I'm
Queen?
giving up all the titles, I'll be speaking as an individual citizen, that's fine.
Do you think that would be fine?
They might still get criticised.
They
might
would.
still be... Yeah, but that's what happens to any public figure, to any celebrity. They're going to get criticised, whatever. But what they won't be in a position of being is rankly hypocritical.
It's
the hypocrisy, which I think the British
Queen.
public are sick and tired of. It's the hypocrisy of these people who spent last year telling us, you've all got to watch your carbon footprint, and then jumped on Elton John's plane like it was a private taxi service, who then, say, right, we're not going to let you have any details about the birth of our son, and then the son pops up in the videos from the Santa Barbara mansion when it suits them to promote their brand, and so on and so on and so on. It's
I
the
just don't
hypocrisy.
think once they've lost their titles, you'll stop criticising
Let me
them.
tell you, Duchess of Sussex likes that title. It's what makes her the money. Before she met Harry, she was just a star of a TV show called Suits. I took her into my local pub in Kensington. Nobody recognised her. No one recognised her.
What happened in that pub,
I was
Piers
getting all the
Morgan?
eyeballs. Well, then she met Harry that night. The last I ever heard from her. She's a piece of work, like I keep telling you.
It's hard to get over, isn't it?
No, it's not. I don't give a damn about being friends with Meghan Markle. In fact, the more I've learned about her, the worse it gets. What kind of friend is that? She's just that poor bloke who wrote that book. So the book Finding Freedom. What's his name? Scobie something.
Yes, Omid Scobie.
Scobie, yeah. He couldn't have written a more unctuous, sycophantic tome in the history of books. It was the biggest smoke-blowing thing you've ever read in your eyes. And yet Meghan's dumped him under the bus in the
didn't
court
have
case
anything
with the
to do
Mail.
with it.
Right, she's now distanced him. He's been ghosted. Before royal historian Robert Lacey started his book about Princes William and Harry, he didn't believe the rumours of a feud between the two brothers.
But after speaking to dozens of people who know them well, he now claims the rift is even more serious than we thought.
And Robert Lacey, author of Battle of Brothers, joins us now. Well, Robert
Morning.
Lacey, been a big fan of your royal books for many years. You're certainly in the category of genuinely well-informed expert. And it seems like you were a bit surprised yourself to discover that the narrative of these two brothers who'd been so joined together, now being at war, was actually broadly true.
Yes, it's tragic. Sorry, Piers, I'm actually rather moved by what you were just been looking at and feeling, that the country is in such need of leadership.
Yeah.
That it's very tragic that our royal family seems to be split. We have this system in this country of a government on one side. That's lost respect. It's divided. And so we look to our royal figurehead. A lot of people haven't got time for the royal family, I know, but their function is to set an example. And I think this is not the answer to your question, but when you look at those scenes, you feel, shouldn't the royal family be giving more leadership? And in particular, why are these two brothers so deeply split on opposite sides?
Just to interject there, because it's such an important point you make, and I, remember early on in the lockdown when the Queen did do her national address, and millions of people watched it, and the fact that the Queen is such a steadying hand when it comes to the moments when she does take that time to speak and to address the nation. But you're right, lower down, the turmoil that's going on between these two brothers is very disruptive. Is it something that started with Meghan marrying Harry and finding that she was very unhappy within the royal family, or did it begin before that?
No, it went way back, and that's what the book's about. I mean, I quite agree with you, Susanna. I mean, that was a World War II moment, wasn't it, when the Queen spoke? It was no surprise. Her picture was put up so long there in Piccadilly Circus to keep everybody inspired. She can't do that again. And would be nice, for example, at this moment, not to have brothers who were quarrelling, but even if they have differences of opinion, to be coming back together. And to answer your question, Susanna, yes, it goes right back to the beginning. It's chickens coming home to roost from all the trouble of the 80s and the 90s. These young boys are the product of that marital turmoil, and they took two opposite lessons from it. William took the lesson of duty. As he went through these difficult times, the prospect that he was going to be king was an inspiration for him, a strength for him, to the degree, for example, that when he fell in love, he politely asked his girlfriend to wait 9 or 10 years before they got married to make sure that she would be good for the job. That's his priority, and they have created a wonderful figurehead for the future. We're not quite sure what we feel about King Charles III or Queen Camilla, but we do look forward to William and Kate. Now, Harry took the opposite conclusion from the turmoil of his parents' loveless arranged marriage, that he was going to go for love. And so we're looking at a clash between these eternal principles of love versus duty. We saw it in...
Robert, let me just jump in there. I don't think there's any doubt that William, for example, has a great love for his wife. I mean, it seems to me that the catalyst for the real friction that we saw between Harry and Meghan and the royal family, it was obviously all boiling. It's fascinating how you paint that picture in the book. But actually, it seems to have come down to this moment when William is concerned at the speed of the relationship with Harry and Meghan. And he gets Earl Spencer, his mother's brother, to sort of intervene and have a word with Harry. And all hell breaks loose. And Harry then feels that side of the family are trying to tell him how to lead his life, tell him what woman to love, and so on. And from that moment on, Harry and Meghan are on this unstoppable sort of train out of there, which is what's happened.
Yes, and of course, as you've often remarked, Piers, Meghan has crystallised in Harry his unhappiness at his role model, the party prince. Again, it's something I look at in the book, going back to their teenage years in Highgrove. Prince Charles, because he was away so much, let them convert the bomb shelter in the bottom of the house to a sort of discotheque called Club H. That's where Harry first got his name as a party prince. But who set the place up? It was his elder brother. And Harry was, I'm not making excuses for him, but he was thrown into this wild set. And when we, the public and the press, looked at it, who was the king of the castle always? It was William. Who was the dirty rascal? It was Harry. He resented that, and it came out with Meghan. Meghan enabled him to voice these dissatisfactions. But of course, Meghan's a massive problem for the royal family. It's easy to be wise after the event. But here's a self-made woman, whatever you think of how she made her reputation. A TV actress, a self-made millionairess, the only one in the royal family who's made her own money, the only one actually who's created her own celebrity and not inherited it. Bringing her into the family was an enormous challenge, and William was actually quite right. And so was Charles Spencer to say to Harry, look, this is a big problem. Not a big problem, but this is a challenge you're bringing into the family. How's it going to work? And with wisdom after the event, one has to say not enough preparations were made. Frankly, she wasn't made to feel important enough. And they are now where they want to be.
Well, the truth is, of course, in the succession line, she's not that important, and nor's Harry, because he's number 7 now on the cab rank, and it would take an awful lot to get Harry anywhere near a position of being king. It's a riveting book, Battle of Brothers. Robert, as always, the research is amazing. 2 big royal stories today. We haven't really got into this story the Mail's been pounding now for days about the BBC and its infamous interview on Panorama with Princess Diana.
Martin Bashir.
And the role of Martin Bashir, the journalist, who's still the BBC's religious correspondent or editor, I think. The more I read about this, the more ironic it gets for me, because I remember being a tabloid editor covering Royal Beat when the BBC would take an extremely tough view of any so-called tabloid skullduggery. And yet here we are on the biggest royal scoop of them all. And it turns out that Princess Diana was basically duped, it is alleged, by Martin Bashir into believing all sorts of wild conspiracy stuff through forged documents, which he presented to her. And Earl Spencer, her brother, has been cooperating, I think, with the Mail on this and putting pressure on the BBC. Where's this going to go? Because the repercussions of that interview were gigantic. And you can chart a path, really, from that being when Diana was thrown to the wolves, if you like, out of the royal protection bracket and ends up dying in an underpass with no royal protection.
These are extraordinary revelations, Piers. I can remember when she did that interview, thinking, why on earth did she do that? It was so damaging to her reputation. She broke so many conventions. But now we know, because Lord Spencer, her brother, has clearly talked to the Mail. He, Martin Bashir, presented a baffling a list of reasons why she should do it, including he told the princess that Prince William had a watch which was spying on her, that her husband was having an affair with Tiggy Leg Book, the nanny, that the Foreign Office was spying on her, that some of her own officials were in the pay of the Secret Service and were spying on her. She was a very vulnerable woman. Martin Bashir deliberately played on her insecurities to get that interview, which was the scoop of the century. And as a result, the Queen wrote to Charles and Diana. Only the Queen writes to her child. Most people would talk to their children and said, you've got to get divorced. And that set in train a whole succession of events. She was stripped of faith. She lost her protection officer. And if she'd had her royal protection officer still, she would never get in that Paris underpass. It's profoundly disturbing what the BBC did.
The Mail, I've got to congratulate I congratulate the Daily Mail. Honestly, you've been pounding this day after day after day, and I think it's one of those stories that's beginning to really gather momentum as the full reality of what the BBC did here becomes clearer.
Yeah, and at the time, there was an inquiry into what Martin Bashir did. It was conducted by the Director of News, Tony Hall, who effectively cleared Martin Bashir. The BBC didn't talk to Princess Diana or Earl Spencer. That man, Tony Hall, then went on to become the Director General of the BBC, the man in charge.
Bashir, but they effectively fired the forger. So the guy that Bashir got to do the forgery, he got disenfranchised by the BBC, but the person who ordered the forgery and used it to dupe Diana. And I think Martin Bashir's got serious questions. We keep being told he's seriously ill with coronavirus and wish him all the very, very best if he is. But he was photographed by the Mail on Sunday at the weekend. He was out sometime in the last few days out buying a takeaway. So he can't be that ill. And I think he's got some serious questions to answer, as has the BBC.
Yeah. And you're right, because if the tabloid newspaper had behaved like that, if your newspaper behaved like that, or mine, the BBC would have been on our back morning, noon and night.
They would have been demanding the head of the editor, of the publisher. If it had been Rupert Murdoch, they'd have been demanding he be stopped from owning newspapers. I mean, you can just imagine the high moral ground the BBC would have taken.
The BBC's promised a robust investigation with appropriate independence. This piece in the Mail today, Di Davis, former head of Royal Protection, says that we now need a police investigation.
Well, it was 1995, and within 2 years, Diana's dead. And she was thrown away from the royal protection bracket because of all this, and that's why it's consequential. You can chart a direct line from this panorama interview, her being effectively removed from the royals and all the protection it afforded her, and then dying in a French underpass. Serious consequences. Kevin, I want to come to you with another royal story. So, extraordinary series of events here. Prince Harry decides that in absentia from his $11 million Californian mansion, he wants to be represented at the Remembrance Sunday. And he wants somebody to lay a wreath on his behalf. And the palace apparently said, no, we're not going to let you do that. You're not a working royal. And it's the working royals who are there physically who will be laying wreaths. So what does Harry do? He gets together with Meghan, his wife.
Well, what do you mean he gets together with Meghan? He's married to his wife. You don't have to get together with her.
You can present the case for the defence in a minute if you finally work one out.
There's a way you phrase it which becomes instantly judgmental.
Well, you know what? I am judgmental.
You are.
Because what they then do, they go to a military cemetery in Los Angeles, and they then invite a photographer, one of their preferred photographers. Remember, they're very privacy-minded, these two. They don't like the press, they don't like photography, unless they're controlling it. And they then release a series of images of themselves at a cemetery, laying flowers and a wreath and paying tribute. Now, Prince Harry's perfectly entitled, Kevin, as a former member of the armed forces, to pay tribute to the armed forces. Of course he is. However, this smacked to me of a really distasteful PR stunt designed to say to the palace, you might try and stop me having my right to have a liveried servant lay my wreath, but you're not going to stop me grabbing the PR headlines. And that, I'm sorry, it sticks in my gullet.
OK,
this guy's he's doing no duty. He's doing no duty.
Hang on a moment, can I just... So my side of the story, Kevin, before you respond, is that the armed forces mean a lot to Prince Harry. Yeah. He served 10 years. He was blocked, allegedly, from having a wreath in his name placed at the cenotaph. Why wouldn't he want to show his respect when he has such a strong connection?
Why do it with a photographer in an American cemetery?
Because if you don't do it with a photographer, people don't know that you've done it.
Oh, please, do me a favour. You can just issue a statement saying you're thinking of people.
And you would
Kevin,
still criticise them.
Cut him some slack here. Cut him some slack. Now, I have no candle. I have no candle burning for Harry Windsor. He's decided to go over the state, live a new life with his wife, make lots of money, do whatever they want to do. But he did serve, as Susanna said, 10 years in the armed forces. He served in Afghanistan. He has comrades who died. He has others who were seriously injured. He had a role with the Royal Marines. Yes, he's given it up, but he founded Invictus Games. You would have criticised him if he'd have gone for a slap-up meal or a coffee instead of laying a wreath there.
He could just issue a statement. He could issue a statement from his California mansion.
Come on.
Of course he could.
No, Kevin, also couldn't he spend the time on Remembrance Sunday? Why couldn't he spend the time paying his respects?
You're both missing my point. I've already said he's perfectly entitled to pay his respects. But what they did was they launched a PR stunt with a preferred photographer to take the attention away from the royals back in London, attending the Remembrance Sunday, very truncated, obviously, in terms of people, service, because they felt thwarted because he couldn't get somebody to go and lay a wreath on his behalf. And here's the point, Kevin. He's no longer a working royal. He doesn't want to do the wet Wednesdays in Stoke, visiting old people's homes.
He wants to live the
life of a celebrity in California. Good luck to him, but don't try and play the rival royal family, competing with the Queen and William and Charles and others who were actually in London doing their duty. I don't like that. I don't like what they're doing.
You could see the medals on his chest, which he'll have earned most of those. Even if he was never a royal in the first place, he served 10 years. He would want to commemorate the fallen and those.
Do it without your photographer choosing your pictures of you in an American cemetery.
I think, Piers, you come across as bitter over this particular...
Maybe. You keep saying it's bitter. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
You can see from
respects.
Fine. You can see from the latest polls how deeply unpopular the pair of them have become. And I think one of the reasons is they want their royal cake and they want to be able to eat it. Tova O'Brien in New Zealand. You're far enough away to not have to worry about what you say. So what do you think of this?
I'm just thoroughly enjoying being courtside to this discussion from all of you. I think we had a kind of similar but different situation during our election campaign when the leader of the opposition got caught in a candid moment in front of the entire press corps praying and kneeling at a chapel, and then when she got a lot of backlash over this very private moment being broadcast everywhere, she blamed the media and said we weren't meant to be there, though she had kind of invited us all in and we were all there at her behest. So I see your point, Piers, but I also think Susanna's right. If the press isn't there, if there isn't a photographer there, you don't see that happen, and he does have a long legacy of service to the armed services. So I'm going to sit squarely on the fence on this one and just enjoy the rounds being
if
thrown
ever anybody
between
is
the pair
not
of
on
you.
a fence, is you.
On this one, I'm gonna sanctuary.
Well, you know what? I'm sure it'll divide opinion, like everything they do. I just found it very distasteful to announce you've got a photographer doing it, and then to release your pictures to the world, showing that you're having a rival sort of remembrance thing going on in California. It was. That's exactly what they're doing.
It was a moment of remembrance.
They were angry, Professor, that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have apparently submitted an application to start their own honours list, a rival honours list to Her Majesty the Queen's. They're going to celebrate charitable service, education, literature, racial justice, gender equality, all the stuff you would expect, plus science. Would you like to be one of the first winners of the Harry and Meghan honours list for your contribution to science?
So, very honoured you say that, Piers, but I'll say I'm not really interested in honours or awards. I mean, this COVID pandemic, so many people have suffered, and the job of public health experts has been to use our expertise to serve society in the way that we've been trained to do. So I'm not really looking for any more accolades. I think we should really, if we want to reward people, it's the frontline staff, the doctors, the nurses, the cleaners, grocery store workers, journalists, teachers, the people who have shown up every day through a really hard few months. That's where our focus should be.
I'm glad you said journalists, because I'm sure the public will be absolutely determined that people like me get our honours. I like that answer, although, of course, you realise it will be Professor Sridhar snubs Meghan and Harry by probably within an hour. Kevin, will you be taking an honour from one of the woke awards from Harry and Meghan for your services?
Kevin, because, you know, I think this is obviously Piers having another dig at Meghan and Harry.
Actually, it's just a story in the papers. They have
point
applied
out
to run their own rival honours list.
Why, in what
Who
way
do they
is
think
it?
they are, these people?
It's not a rival honours list.
What is it then?
It is an awards ceremony to reward people who have achieved incredible things.
Yeah, that's what the honours list is for. That's what the royals do.
So would you say that Prince Charles, when he runs his Prince's Trust Awards, is a rival honours list?
Yeah.
It's not a rival honours
Yeah, it
list.
is. This is also also a rival honours list to the Prince Charles one.
But no one's complaining when
anyway, my
Charles does his
look,
Prince's
you just
Trust
want one of their awards, I know you do. You would love it. Your absolute dream would be that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle give you an award for your services to woke journalism.
I tell you what would be my absolute dream if you didn't
would you
use the
accept an
opportunity
award
every single morning.
Kevin, would you accept it?
Harry and Meghan?
Would you accept an award from Meghan and Harry for your wokedom?
No, I wouldn't want to be patronised by them. Look, I cut them a bit of slack. Probably more in the Susanna camp than your camp. But I was just thinking though, the Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme encourages kids to go out to the outdoors and do voluntary work. The Prince's Trust, Prince Charles's effort, helps people who've fallen on hard times, maybe offenders, struggling homes. Even Prince Andrew, dreaded Prince Andrew, his entrepreneur scheme helped people set up businesses. This just sounds like a glitzy opportunity for them to lord it over everybody else.
What are you talking about? They are going to award people for charitable service, education, science, racial justice, gender equity. What's wrong with
not organising.
Susanna's ever more torturous defences of the Sussexes is one of my favourite things of 2021. I have to say, it's literally my favourite thing, where it gets so indefensible. Inaya, finally with you, Inaya, would you proudly accept an award from Meghan and Harry?
I think I'm with you, Piers, on this. I think this very much look like a peaceful, quiet life away from the limelight that we originally expected. So I would pass on.
Have you ever met a couple more determined to invade their own privacy? Quite extraordinary. Anyway, lovely to talk to you all. Thank you very much indeed.
I tell you what, the one person who gives them...
Meghan and Harry, I thought they had a good festive period, didn't they?
Well, they had a very successful Spotify podcast.
Yeah.
Their Archerwell podcast.
Have we got that gut-wrenching bit where they bring him a little kid, they're so desperate to protect his privacy, they use him to flog their podcast.
I'm so sorry. I mentioned Meghan because I thought it was a nice moment that Dame Joan Collins was very generous about her.
Did you not listen, when Ginger...
And I realise it's actually triggered you, sorry.
When Ginger and Cringe did their podcast...
It's a terrible
That's their new nickname, Ginger and Cringe. Well, he's got ginger hair and she makes me cringe. But when they did the Spotify thing, and little Archie was brought in to flog it with his laughter, did it not make you go, oh?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Not at all? Even after all we've got to leave the country to protect his privacy?
No, but the thing
and now
is...
the moment we've signed a big money deal for Spotify, we're going to use him to flog our podcast?
Don't say use him.
What else are they doing?
He is a part of their family, and if they want to include him,
So if
then why not?
If they want to... Let's listen to it here. Ginge, Cringe and Archie.
I think it's gorgeous.
Really
Absolutely
gorgeous. And, of course, a perfect way to protect his privacy.
Listen, Piers Morgan. just because you sometimes involve your family does not mean that that is carte blanche for the media
I think when you
to
leave,
intrude upon your privacy.
Here's my point.
It's up to them.
Here's my point. No, it's not up to them, and here's why.
Of course it's up to them.
Here's my point. Hear me out. It all comes down to the same thing. Would Spotify have given them £2 if they weren't the Duke and Duchess of Sussex?
Yes, they would still have given them the money. They would because they've got the profile.
They wouldn't have the profile without being members of the royal family.
Right.
They are fleecing their royal titles to make money. You know they are.
If you strip them of their titles, they will still be...
But it won't be
Harry and Meghan.
Let them go and do their thing as Meghan and Harry.
Yes,
Let them do it.
They will still be popular and they'll still have things to say and people will still want to listen to them.
I'm sorry, we've had this debate many times. It is completely inappropriate for members of the royal family to use their titles to fleece commercial entities in this way.
They haven't done any fleecing. Spotify gave them the money.
Spotify, Netflix,
nefarious going
coffee companies. I mean, they're out there.
Are you fleecing ITV? Well, you might be, actually.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, so are you. And the moment the ratings dip, we'll be fleeced out of here faster than we can blink. But here's my point. I'm not using royal titles to make the money. They don't want to do any of the duty that goes with being a member of the royal family. The Queen, I'm sorry, I said this a year ago when they first started. I said, here's the problem. They can go off and be Hollywood stars, but they can't use the royal titles. And nothing has happened since to change my mind. Meghan clearly wants to make them fabulously rich. Not a problem.
What's wrong with that?
Not a problem. She's come in, taken the prince, taken him to Hollywood, now using the titles to make millions of pounds.
She has fallen in love with her life partner.
She's fallen in love with what he can bring to her wallet.
You're so cynical.
I want to go and marry Prince Harry next. Seriously, I do. I want to go and marry Prince Harry, have a same-sex marriage.
Why shouldn't?
And then I want to go and live. I want to go and live with him at my Hollywood home. Live with him at my Hollywood home, and then start doing $100 million deals everywhere, whilst being the Duke. I could be Duke of Sussex. I'm from Sussex. I've spent more time in Sussex in my life than they've spent ever.
Is there a point at which you start realising this sounds ridiculous?
No, I think most of our viewers agree with me. I do.
I think if they lost their royal titles, they would still be
Why don't we see? Why don't we see just how popular they are when
I think that's
good old
probably
Meghan and
up
Harry?
to the Queen.
Just old Ginge and Cringe.
Not up to
Because
Piers
at the moment, they are making a mockery of the royal family system. Because the royals, they do their duty, and in return, they get their palaces and the servants and everything, because we respect the fact they do the hard yards on a wet Wednesday in Stoke in an old people's home. That's the deal.
They don't have a palace.
Who?
The Duke and Duchess.
Well, they do. They've got one in Santa Barbara.
That's not paid for by the royals.
No, it's a palace paid for by Spotify and Netflix, who they've only got deals
from. In the same way that you've got a palace in London paid for by ITV and the Mail on Sunday.
It's all my money that I've earned. I'm not getting out of being Duke Morgan of Sussex, am I? Much as I should be. I don't trade off royal titles, and I don't trade off them whilst refusing to do any royal duty.
They would still be earning that money if they weren't royals. They're no longer royals.
If you want to trade off the royal titles, put in the yards in this country as serving members of the royal family. They don't want to do it. Remember, they quit the country for privacy. God, we've hardly heard them shut up ever since. And then they particularly wanted to protect their little boy, who's now the star of their new podcast. It is all complete hogwash. And by the way, Susanna, you can keep banging their drum. I'm telling you, our viewers are not stupid, and they see right through this.
I've never suggested our viewers are stupid.
Let's do a poll. Should Meghan and Harry be stripped of their royal titles? Should the Queen strip Meghan and Harry of their royal titles that they are so shamelessly using to make hundreds of millions of dollars? Yes or no? You watch the way that poll goes. Everyone agreeing with me, obviously. Totally agree with you about Ginge and Cringe. So does everyone I know, says Carol Leslie, I think her name is. You're 100% correct. Yeah, everyone agreeing. We'll do the poll.
Sorry, that was 2 people.
Let's do the poll.
OK.
We're doing the poll yet? Yeah.
It's 1,000
votes already.
On the poll, right.
How many say yes?
What was the type?
85% of our viewers.
So 15% do not agree with you.
There we are.
So when you say everyone agrees with you, you're wrong.
Yeah. We actually left the European Union with 52%, just to let you know. So these things do have an effect. Yeah, no problem. Go off and do any number of commercial deals.
48% of people...
You just can't... It's going up. Literally, as I look at it, it's going up. Listen, everyone agrees with me about this.
With leaving the EU.
Honestly, as always,
It's gone
everyone
down.
agrees with me. Nobody thinks Ginge and Cringe should keep their titles. The new title should be Ginge and Cringe.
No, but
Ginge and Cringe Productions.
Piers Morgan, you have literally changed the terms of the debate. I said if they were stripped of their royal titles, they would still be able to go out and make
And I said,
money.
let's see.
And that would be legitimate.
I said, let's see. Let's see.
I don't have a problem with them going out and making money.
Let's
but
see.
You do.
Why don't we test the theory? Off you go. But you're not doing it as Duke and Duchess of Sussex anymore because you don't want to do the duty. And that's the deal if you remember the royal family. And my loyalty is to the Queen, to Prince Charles and Camilla, to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, because they've all put in the yards in this country.
Why don't you leave
in
the
our
decision
toughest
up
year
to
of my
Her Majesty,
lifetime?
then?
It's been the royals here that have been the ones that have put the yards in. They're the ones I care about and the future of the monarchy here, not in Santa Barbara.
You seem to care quite a lot.
Happy New Year!
Just like to say...
Happy New Year, everybody!
You're losing support on the poll.
New Year.
Going down.
Please don't invade my privacy. Happy New Year! Is this enough, Spotify? Can I go back to bed now? I'm only 2 years old. Let me go back to bed.